We are going to encounter massive financial deflation. Real estate is going to crash. It's going to be 2008 on steroids with all of this liquidity that has just gone into the system that needs to be resolved. It's coming. It's already happening in commercial. You hear this, although it's not really heavily reported. But we've got vacancy factor at historic levels, over 20%. I think it's about 20.5 or 20.6, up from 19.5% like 2 or 3 months ago. So it's getting worse. And right now, the S&P 500 companies are honoring their leases, but the moment those leases go bad, they're going to quit paying. So expect that vacancy factor is going to move wildly higher. And of course, we've gone over this, that buildings are only worth what they generate on income. And that has a lot to do with occupancy, of course, and whatever the cap rate happens to be at the time. And cap rates are going up. When cap rates go up, prices come down. And that doesn't justify the lofty prices on a lot of these buildings. So when you've got a building that's sold for $750 million and has a $600 million mortgage on it, and it comes up for refinance again, and it's not only worth $400 million, and you owe $6, well, people default, and someone takes massive losses. And we're hearing stories of lenders taking $100 million, $200 million, $300 million in losses, $400 million in losses, where properties are selling for anywhere from 10 to 40% of what they were appraised at the last time. This is massive deflation. You understand that? So this money disappears. It goes somewhere. That's called deflation. And it's moving over into housing. We're going to see a massacre in the way of FHA. So FHA is going to be the new subprime. They violated all the rules. Half of these didn't even have appraisals done on them. People were paying $50,000 more than what the house is worth, and the lenders were okay with that. How can you be okay with that? So they added risk, and all this risk is coming home to roost, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen very, very soon. So the question then, how do we take advantage of that? How do we take advantage of that? Because I'm going to tell you that there's going to be enormous opportunity, but only if you're prepared. If you happen to be one of these people that owns one of these buildings that just got reappraised for like half of what you paid for it, you're not going to be doing much of anything. So we've been trying to get you to the position that you are doing capital preservation. And that's what we've been into for the last 4 years. And when this turns, I am going to make an absolute fortune, and my clients are going to do really, really well. So if you've been missed out, if you didn't make that last one, if you need income in your retirement account, so if you don't have $100,000 to $125,000 passive income, that's adding up Social Security, any pension that you have, and any investments that are giving you income. If you don't have that, you cannot retire. Don't even think about doing that. It's a travesty. We have lots of people retire with nothing, and then they're out on the streets after 5 or 10 years. You're 80 years old, and you're living on the streets. Well, who wants that? So let's go to my first slide here, and let's just talk about what we're looking at, because it's not going to be pretty. Now, here's one of the problems that we have is the fact that it's really, really hard to get good data. I've been complaining about this for years. Bureau of Labor Statistics, with their birth-death model telling us how many people are employed, and you find out, we missed by 1 million. You're not even close. Here's what we're looking at. I'm a member of the National Association of Realtors. I just got this. This is their end of Q2 of 2025. So this is their compilation of median home prices in by county across the United States, and they compile across the top. They tell you what look through here. Here's where the average person. These are the average people. Most of them, 57% of them are between 150 and 350, and only 11.7 up to 550. Then you drop off to next to nothing. 2.7 between 550 and 750. If you go over 750,000, only 1.1% of the population goes between 750 and 1 million. And look up here, 0.5% of the entire population of the United States are buying over $1 million. So do you think there's something wrong with this? Do you think this might just be a little skewed? Might there not be something wrong that 0.5% of the people can afford $1 million house, but yet prices are priced like crazy? So we've seen this before. This is exactly what happened in 2006, moving into 2007. The mantra was nothing is affordable, and affordability was brutally resolved. You understand this? It was brutally resolved. Now, I'm going to tell you what's going on. So this is going by county. And in Maricopa County, let me open this up a little bit, by NAR, they're saying that the median price was let me just go here, was 509 in Maricopa County, where Phoenix is at, 509. Now I'm going to tell you, we went to Zillow. Now I find Zillow so much better. They have such better data. They came out with 464,000. These guys are at 509. So who's it's a 10% difference. It's over 10% difference. So who's telling the truth here? So we have 464,000 is the median sales price in Maricopa County, and it's 45,000 less than the NAR. They're looking at the same data, coming up with two different data points. So I'm going to tell you that that sets me off just a little bit. That I think this is just a little bit bad. This is a problem that we had there, and I'm going to tell you, I think there's issues people don't want to admit to the fact that we have problems. So we have to look and say, is there an issue here? Do they have an iron in the fire that they want to keep the prices up? So I don't know. But my data, I am here in Maricopa County, and I think Zillow is much more reflective of what's going on. Let me open this up and let me go to my next slide, and we can discuss that. So here's Phoenix itself. So we peaked in July of 2022 at $454,000. This is Zillow. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of our MLS stuff or armless things are telling us the same thing. And we came down here in August, it's 408. In July, it was 417. But in August, it's 408. It's continuing to drop. So it is down a good 10% easily. And that, of course, is across the board. Some of these developments are way down, and depending on how crazy you were when you were trying to buy these properties. I'm paying cash for it, man. I'm representing investors, so I'm a value investor. I'm handling someone's investments, and I want to make sure that we're getting a good deal. And we're up against people who are spending $50,000, $60,000 more than asking. I'm going, the house isn't worth anywhere near this, and I'm not going to pay that. And yet they did. And so if you're one of those, then you probably overpaid, and you're going to pay the price. So I hope you're considered if you're going to stay there for 20 years, because if you're going to sell it in the next 2 or 3 years, you are definitely underwater. And we're seeing tons of this. A lot of people who overpaid for their properties are underwater. Let me go to my next slide. We'll just talk about that. And just to confirm this is what we're talking about is confirmed, is that you can see here, again, this is what peaked, looks like it peaked in Q2 or Q3 of 2022. Same as what our models said, exactly the time frame. And they're down 22% since then. And these are professional sellers. I want you to understand that. These guys do this for a living. They've done it for many, many years. These guys are pros. They're way better than you are. And they've found that they have to reduce the price of their product by 22% or they cannot sell it. And they need to sell it because they own all this land. D.R. Horton owns like 270 square miles in East Valley of Phoenix here. And that's got to cost them an absolute fortune. $9 billion, I'm heard, is that they went in debt for that stuff. Because of the growth that's coming here, we're looking at a decades-long trend here in Metro Phoenix. So I understand where they did that. It was just a bad timing. Now, the question is that Lennar is down 22%. They're almost gone back to where they started in 2019 and 2020. You're going to do that too. And so the builders are way ahead of mom and pop homeowners. So let me just go to that and let's just talk about what we see is going to happen. Now, median price in single family homes sold, these are new. Again, it's dropping, but it's got to get all the way down here. So this is a median price, and of course it's a 3-month average. We think it's going to come down, really down here somewhere, so around the 320. It's going to come down and come down pretty hard. And you can see it's liquidity. Once you get liquidity, and I'm talked about, this was for equities. It's the same thing whether it's housing or it's equity. You see all this liquidity was driven into the monetary base. Look at this, and prices just follow the monetary base. And liquidity is just like it was in the roaring 20s because we're following liquidity. It's on one of our models. And where is this liquidity coming from? Well, in the roaring 20s, they were having problems in Europe. They had just gotten through with World War I, lots of problems in World War I. And you had the rise of Mussolini, had the rise of Franco in Spain, you had the rise of Hitler in Germany, and the people got scared, started sending their money over here to the United States, and there was money everywhere. And of course, wherever there's money, people do all kinds of crazy things. If there's liquidity, there's money to do whatever project that you want. And when there's money sloshing around, things are great. We had the roaring 20s. Well, I'm going to tell you, we just had the roaring 20s where we're at. And I'm going to tell you, what happened in the roaring 20s, because it eventually resolves and was very, very reminiscent. I did a video on this just the other day. This is where our liquidity is coming. It's coming from Europe. Europe sent us $1 trillion in the last year, and it's going into a stock market. And some of it, of course, is spilling over into the housing market. That's going to end. Now, I'm going to tell you, we just talked about that. If you like my videos, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Give me some comments. I'd love to hear what's going on. I just, in your marketplace. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. We have chips like crazy being built here. We're so fortunate. We've got the Taiwan semiconductor plant, and of course, AMD just did another contract for billions of dollars, just lots and lots of billions of dollars. It gets to be mind-boggling with Taiwan Semiconductor to do their AI chips. That's on top of NVIDIA that's doing it. And Amcor here, just like as I mentioned, they just raised $7 billion. They're going to put $7 billion more into their plants here. So, Phoenix is going to do not going to be immune. I want to tell you, we're not going to be immune. We're also going to get hurt, but not as bad as some others. Let me go to my next slide. So as what happened, during the Great Depression is coming here, because I'm going to tell you, we've never had this much money ever before. $1 trillion increase in our M2. This is where the money is coming from. I checked with the Board of Governors, with the Federal Reserve. It's not from them. They are removing liquidity out of the marketplace, and it keeps coming in, and it's coming in from Europe. It's scared. It's looking for a safe haven. The Dow Jones Industrial has exploded. It's not coming from China. It's not coming from Japan. And you can see easily it's here from France. There's their Bank of France. And here's the euro. And you can see it's coming, but mostly from France and the euro. So housing is definitely completing. So we are going to have, it's underway. Is this what we see in commercial, where you see multifamily getting refinanced? And of course, it goes from a 3.5 or 4% mortgage to 6.5 or 7% mortgage, and the values come down. We had all these here in Phoenix, Arizona. We had 42,000 units that have been built and are now completing, and they're driving rental prices down because they need to, they can't have an empty building, so they'll do whatever they can to do this. So the housing cycle is completing. So let's call it's changing of trend. The change of trend is in, and it's going to be brutal. Now, we are going to make an absolute fortune on this, is that we're going to do capital preservation. Now, I've been talking about this. Make sure that you're saving money, getting out of debt, preserving your income and making sure your credit is pristine. And we're going to get you rich. I'll be making I'll buy everything I possibly can on this. So let me go to my next slide, and let's just really quickly talk about what we see. Now here in Phoenix, we talk about this again. So we're down 8 to 10%, depending on what you're using. But this is the most important, is that I see us having a really quick collapse in prices. And that's just inevitable. I just got this the other day from Case Shiller. Case Shiller is very, very, they're a lagging indicator by, 90 days oftentimes. That makes it very, very difficult to check there. And I think we're going to see a decline nationally of probably 20 to 30%. Here in Phoenix, we're looking at least 8. And here's where I wanted to get to. These towers that you see in Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, if you have any of your investments in any of these properties, you need to start thinking, why? Why do I have my investments in these cities? Get yourself to a better. This is, if you're in these cities, you probably should sell. And I'm going to tell you, take your capital gains loss if you're not going to 1031 them to Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona has a decades-long growth potential just on the chip manufacturing. AI chips, we're making AI chips here in Phoenix Metro. That's where it's coming from. Plus, we've become a big manufacturing hub. We're not going to wear that crown like we did in 2008. Others are going to do that. That's going to be Texas and Florida and Tennessee and, South Carolina. Those guys are going to be in big trouble. We are not going to be immune, of course. California's just, people are leaving California like crazy. They're coming here, so we're lucky. So I'm going to tell you, if you need me, you know where I'm at. Let me get to see what my next slide is, and let's finish this up. I want to get your comments. I'd love to hear from what's going on. So this is where I'm at. You know where I'm at. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. We're here to help you with this. Sit down and do a consultation. Cost you a few bucks. It's not free, but it's not expensive either. We'll sit down and try and find out what's good for you. Try to look where your investments are at, how they're positioned. Because if you're in these other cities, you need to start thinking, I'm going to do a 1031 exchange and preserve my capital, get into a better marketplace. And of course, when you do a 1031 exchange, it doesn't trigger a capital gains tax event. And it's fairly reasonable to do that. So this is where I'm at. If I can help in any way, give me a call. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye now.